What's up to all my writing wannabes? I am probably going to destroy your day because you probably don't have what it takes to be a writer. I mean, you have to be super special to be a writer. You have to be super smart to be a writer. You have to be obsessed with like really good prose to be a writer. You have to fall at the feet of the greats to be a writer. And it's not a lot of people, and it's honestly probably not you. Totally kidding. You don't have to be any of those things to be a writer, but there is a difference between a writer and someone who writes. Neither is better than the other. They both probably do a lot of writing, a lot of publishing, put a lot of their stuff out there, and they both have very different goals. Someone who writes might be an entrepreneur, somebody who wants to inspire a specific message or ignite action in a group of people, somebody who is selling a project. Someone who writes is using writing as a means to an end, and that end itself is not the writing. For a writer, that end itself is the writing. And after years of being a writer, hiring writers, building teams of writers, being so privileged to work with many writers in my life, I think that I know the signs that you're meant to be a writer. And I'm going to tell you about them, but first I wanted to mention that this YouTube video was first an article on my Medium channel where I just launched a weekly writing practice. I write about stuff like writing, work, remote work, life design, productivity, happiness, a lot of things that I have been obsessed with over the course of my entire life and that have led me to do things like get published in places that I wanted to and 5 times my salary over the course of my 20s and meet some really fantastic people that have become best friends, confidants, colleagues, connections. And I want to share those experiences with other people, but mostly I want to meet other people that are also obsessed with these topics too and might have fantastic stories to share. Anywho, if you like this video, I invite you to follow me there as well. Link in the description. Let's get back to the list. Can you hear the dog barking? Okay, first thing, your head is loud. It's like there's constantly stuff banging around in there, wanting to get out, and most of the time it doesn't have anything to do with writing or a writing project that you're working on. You could just be like driving in your car, thinking about hanging out with your friends earlier that afternoon and be like, damn it, I had the perfect response for that. Or maybe you're just sitting at your desk, you know, typing away and thinking about a podcast that you listened to earlier that day about true crime and they're trying to solve something and you're like, oh my God, I know who it is. But no matter what, your head is always filled with stuff and you're constantly looking to fill it with more. Whether or not that's books, articles, YouTube videos, podcasts, time with people online, interviewing new people, networking, meeting people for coffee, you're just like constantly looking for more input because writers know that great ideas come from input. And most of the stuff that's going to roll around in your head is absolute garbage, but you're definitely not going to find the diamond in the rough unless you have like a lot of rough. Ugh, I like bumped the camera. Second thing, you want the juicy dirt details on anything, any mundane thing that you might be talking about with friends or coworkers. Say a friend of yours tells you that she's picking up baking. And first you're like, can I taste test? Because like, duh. But after that, you're like, why? Why baking? What sparked this new interest? Did your parents bake? Are you really bad at baking and the perfectionist in you needs to nail it? Are you someone with like a huge sweet tooth and you just have to like satisfy your sweet tooth? Are you unhappy at work and looking for a hobby? Are you trying to get away from screens? Are you tempting family and friends over more often? Like, why? Tell me why. And we're so interested in those questions because it's the emotions that connect people to the stories that we write. So we're so obsessed with the emotions behind whatever anyone is telling us, because the more you understand about how people emotionally tick, the better a writer you can be. So writers just like suck up all the emotional details like little writing vampires. Not really, but you get the point. Third thing, you can be a peacemaker. You're so obsessed with emotions that when shit hits the fan and tensions are running high, You don't necessarily see all the shit flying everywhere. You see everybody's emotions. So you end up wanting to make sure that everyone understands each other's emotions, and find yourself saying things like at work, oh, like, Stephanie, I don't know if Monica intentionally didn't answer your email, but I bet, Monica, that when you did that, it made Stephanie feel like you were betraying her a bit by not letting her get her project done on time. Whatever it may be. You definitely can be a little bit of a peacemaker, so thanks, therapist friend. Fourth thing, you know when words are left unspoken, and this is just another aspect of being obsessed with emotions. When things are tense, it's because something's not being said. And if you really, really know someone, you might even know that they're not saying something before they know that they're not saying it. But you know how to ask the questions to fill the void so that tense conversations aren't tense anymore. Like, Monica, did you mean to not answer Stephanie's email? And the reason that you know how to do that is because writers need to reverse engineer tense situations all the time to create tension in good stories, whether or not they're nonfiction or fiction. It's just something that needs to happen to create a good story, and something that a lot of writers do. Fifth thing, you see stories from all the different possible angles, which is annoying. If you haven't caught on yet, part of being a writer is being annoying. Get used to it. So you hear things like, oh my God, Jeremy was such a jerk today. I saw him in the grocery store and he just walked right by me. He didn't even say hi. Like, what a jerk. And then you're like, yeah, but maybe he just didn't see you, or he like fought with his boss today and just wanted to get home, or maybe like his kid is really sick and he really needed to get that cough syrup home as fast as he can and he didn't even see you in his rush, or maybe like, shut up. But the thing is, it's a really handy skill to have when you have to write about something. Say that you have to write about a plane crash where everyone survives. Let's not escalate this further than it needs to go. But everyone survives. So you're writing about it and you're like, I could tell it from the point of the view of the pilot who crashed the plane. I could tell it from the point of view of one of the survivors. Or maybe you could tell it from the engineer's point of view who did the pre-flight check but was distracted because he fought with his wife that morning. Or maybe you could tell it from a passenger who missed his plane and watched it crash from the window in the airport. Or you could tell it from a first responder who got to the scene and had to pull people out of the plane. There are so many different options. And if you're someone who sees stories, even mundane stories in your daily life, from a ton of different angles, this is much easier for you. Sixth thing, when you tell anybody anything, you think about how you're going to tell it first. So imagine the 15-year-old kid who still getting around on his bike. He's going to get his license when he's 16. I don't know if it's a different age where you're from. Where I'm from, it's 16, so I'm just going with that. He's going to get his license when he's 16, but he knows that his parents aren't going to buy him a car. He just knows it's not in the cards. But his bike is like old, grody. He got it when he was younger, so he was like, if I'm not going to get a new car, I might as well get this like upgraded bike. And he thinks that his parents will be more likely to say yes to that, but he's not sure. So when he asks them, he asks for the car and he like pleads for the car. They're going to ruin his social life if they do not get him this car. But at the end of the day, they still say no, but he has worked them so much that they feel guilty about it. So then he goes and he asks for the bike and it's a resounding yes. He thought about his audience first and he met the goal that he was trying to achieve. That kid has what it takes to be a writer. Seventh thing, you have a thing that you do when you need to focus. Maybe it's putting on noise canceling headphones and a YouTube ASMR video. Guilty. Maybe you have an In the Zone playlist. Maybe you do the coffee shop thing. Maybe you're filthy rich and you take a helicopter to your getaway house in the Hamptons. Good for you. Take us all with you. But no matter what it is, when you have to focus, think, write, work, whatever it may be, when you really need to find flow, you have a thing that you do. And writers will know what I'm talking about. Eighth thing, when you get those ideas out of your loud head, you feel better. You feel lighter. You feel like a boulder was taken off your shoulders. And you don't necessarily have to be writing to do this. It could be like sketching on the back of a napkin. It could be taking notes in a journal that you jot sketch ideas out in. It could be audio notes on your phone, whatever it may be. But when you finally take the time to think about what's rolling around in your head and get it out onto paper, you feel better, you feel lighter, and you feel more ready to tackle them. 9th thing, you have a system for organizing your thoughts. When you do finally sit down to write, you know that you can't just like sit down and like hit flow or work or think or focus, whatever you might be doing. It's really annoying when you sit down and you're like, oh my God, what was that great idea that I had in the shower? Or you need to go and you need to research more information in the middle of your work to be able to get it done. Or you think that you can make an argument a lot stronger if you just had a specific stat. All of those little diversions are distracting and they break flow, which is really, really important to a writer. So writers have a system for organizing their thoughts and collecting everything that they need to start writing before they actually start. Maybe it's those napkins we were talking about, or the app on your phone, or a Google Doc, or maybe you have a highly systematic process with file names and tags and it works fantastically. And if you have one of those, comment below because I need one. No matter what it is, you have a system because you know that writing can't work without it. Finally, 10th thing, you actually write. I'm probably going to age myself a little bit here, but do you guys remember those children's chapter books, Harriet the Spy? She was like a little girl who wanted to be a spy, and she took a notebook with her wherever she went, and she wrote down everything that she saw in her neighborhood, around her house. And at the end of the book, it's like the first book, I think, she realizes that she's never going to be a spy unless she actually uses the things that she's written down in the notebooks. It's the exact same concept. You're not going to be a writer unless you actually write. Research doesn't count. Starting and abandoning things doesn't count. Bouncing ideas off of your poor friends and family, guilty, doesn't count. You actually have to write to be a writer. Anyways, thanks for listening to my writer's rant. As I mentioned before, I launched a weekly writing practice on Medium, writing about things like writing, work, remote work, life design, productivity, happiness, and I plan to turn each of those articles into YouTube videos, which I will post on this channel. Follow me there, here, anywhere, links in the description, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Thanks for the warm welcome to YouTube. This is hard.